If you can't handle me being in bed with the CEO and your friends, then go. They're real women, not frigid like you. My husband sneered. I smiled coolly. As you wish. By morning, my 3 friends, my husband, and his CEO lover all collapsed with identical symptoms. The doctor entered, face grave. I hate to say this, but Juliet won't suspect anything, Benjamin said to the laptop screen, not hearing me enter our bedroom. She's too frigid to understand what real passion looks like. I stood in the doorway, still in my sensible work clothes, watching my husband coordinate with his CEO and my 3 best friends about using tomorrow's corporate wellness event as their next opportunity. Harper's voice came through clearly. The Ice Queen will probably spend the whole event analyzing data on her phone. They laughed, all 5 of them, while I stood there calculating not the pain of betrayal, but the probability of perfect revenge. The Thursday afternoon light cast long shadows across our bedroom floor, the same bedroom where Benjamin and I had planned our future 7 years ago. Back then he'd promised we were building something together. I supported his pharmaceutical sales career, woke at 5:30 every morning to prepare his protein shakes and egg white omelets, believing his success would become our success. What I hadn't told him, what I'd never told anyone, was that while making his breakfast I was also checking my phone for overnight trading alerts. Another $12,000 had accumulated while we slept, my algorithms working through Asian market hours with the precision of a Swiss watch. The facility screening rooms will be perfect, Isabella was saying through the laptop speakers, her voice carrying that fake therapeutic tone she'd developed since her divorce. The same voice she'd used crying on my shoulder 6 months ago, telling me how lonely she felt. Everyone will be so focused on their health results, no one will notice if people slip away. Sophia chimed in with her practiced Zen master cadence. And I'll be leading meditation sessions in the West Wing. Perfect cover for anyone who needs to realign their chakras. More laughter. The kind that comes when people think they're so clever, so above consequences. I shifted slightly, my sensible flats silent on the hardwood floor. Benjamin still hadn't noticed me. He was too engaged with his screen, too confident in his deception. His new cologne, the one he'd started wearing 3 months ago, filled the room with a scent I now recognized as the smell of betrayal. Tom Ford. Expensive. Nothing like the Old Spice he'd worn when we met. What about Juliet? Mia asked, and I recognized the nervous edge in her voice. The same uncertainty she'd had when I spent 60 hours helping her prepare for her CPA certification. She's supposed to attend tomorrow. Benjamin, you said spouses were strongly encouraged to participate. I'll handle my wife, Benjamin replied, the casual dismissal in his voice more cutting than any insult. She'll show up, get her blood pressure checked, make some spreadsheets about the data, and leave early to run her little algorithms. You know how she is, she treats everything like a math problem waiting to be solved. Harper laughed, a sound like champagne glasses breaking. That's what I love about you, Benjamin. You married a computer and figured out you needed actual women. Actual women. As if my dedication, my loyalty, my careful building of our life meant nothing. As if the $3.8 million portfolio I'd secretly amassed through proprietary trading algorithms was less real than their afternoon affairs. They had no idea that while they called me frigid, I was generating returns that would make Harper's CEO salary look like pocket change. I pulled out my phone, not to check my algorithms but to send a quick message to Dr. Sarah Winters. Sarah and I had worked together briefly in biomedical analytics before she was blacklisted for exposing how Benjamin's own company had manipulated trial data. She understood how numbers could reveal truths that powerful people wanted hidden. Available for a consultation tomorrow? I typed. Corporate wellness event. Interesting data patterns emerging. Her response was immediate. Always interested in pattern recognition. Send me details. On the laptop screen I could see all 4 faces clearly now. Harper with her perfect contouring that probably cost more than most people's rent. Isabella wearing the designer frames I'd helped her pick out after her divorce. Sophia in one of her flowing tops that screamed, spiritual but make it expensive. And Mia, her face partially obscured but her distinctive rose gold watch visible. The one she'd bought to celebrate passing her CPA exam, the exam I'd coached her through. The best part, Benjamin continued, warming to his theme, is that Juliet actually thinks these are her friends. She has lunch with Isabella every week. Does yoga with Sophia. still mentors Mia on career development. He shook his head with false pity. She's so focused on her data and patterns she can't see the pattern right in front of her face. The pattern. He was right about that, at least. There was definitely a pattern here. But it wasn't the one he thought. I remembered last month's company dinner, how Harper's hand had lingered on Benjamin's shoulder while complimenting my dedication to supporting his career. How Isabella, Sophia, and Mia had all seemed unusually interested in Benjamin's promotion prospects, asking questions about his travel schedule, his client meetings, his bonus structure. I'd cataloged these moments the way I cataloged market anomalies, data points that didn't quite fit the expected model. Tomorrow's going to be perfect, Harper declared with CEO finality. The wellness screenings provide cover, the facility is large enough for privacy, and everyone will be so focused on their health metrics they won't notice anything else. Speaking of metrics, Benjamin said, glancing at his watch, the Rolex he'd bought himself for his last promotion, I should go. Juliet will be home soon and I need to remind her about tomorrow's event. Play the devoted husband encouraging his wife to take care of her health. The devoted husband. The phrase sat in the air like a mathematical impossibility, an equation that couldn't balance. I backed out of the doorway silently, returning to the kitchen where I'd left my work bag. I pulled out my laptop and began what looked like work but was actually something far more interesting. Accessing the wellness events participant list, the screening protocols, the facility layout. My phone buzzed with another trading alert. A successful position that netted another $8,000. The numbers flowed across my screen in perfect patterns, predictable and logical. Unlike people, algorithms didn't lie. They didn't pretend to be your friend while sleeping with your husband. They didn't mock you in group chats named after your supposed coldness. Benjamin emerged from the bedroom 10 minutes later, his face composed into the mask of concerned husband. Hey honey, you're home early. Migraine again. I looked up from my laptop, my expression as neutral as a balance sheet. Just wanted to finish some analysis in peace. How was your day? Good. Actually, I wanted to remind you about tomorrow's wellness event. Harper's really hoping for full participation, especially from spouses. You'll come, right? The wellness event. Where they plan to use health screenings as cover for their continued affairs. Where my 3 best friends and his CEO would laugh about the Ice Queen being too absorbed in data to notice anything. Of course, I replied, my voice steady as compound interest. I wouldn't miss it for anything. The wellness event loomed tomorrow, but tonight, Benjamin apparently decided to give me the full presentation. He followed me from the kitchen to the living room, his confidence growing with each step, mistaking my silence for submission rather than calculation. You deserve to know everything, he said, settling into his leather recliner while I remained standing by the window. The streetlights outside cast geometric patterns on our hardwood floor, and I focused on those clean lines while he began his confession with the casual tone of someone explaining a merger acquisition. Harper and I started 6 months ago. She saw potential in me that you never did. She makes me feel powerful, Juliet. Like I could run that entire company someday. He paused, waiting for a reaction that didn't come. Isabella happened naturally. She was vulnerable after her divorce, and she needed someone who understood her needs. Real emotional needs, not just spreadsheet solutions. My fingers traced the window frame while he continued his inventory of infidelity. Each woman apparently filled some void I'd created through my supposed coldness. Sophia brought passion and spontaneity to his structured life. Mia appreciated his guidance in ways that went beyond professional mentoring. He laid out these affairs with the same methodical precision he used for pharmaceutical sales pitches, complete with value propositions and benefit analyses. We have a WhatsApp group, he said, pulling out his phone with disturbing eagerness. Want to see what your friends really think of you? He held the screen toward me, showing the group name clearly, the Ice Queen's Court. The latest message thread made my chest tighten, not from hurt but from the sheer audacity of their coordination. Harper had sent a photo from last week's yoga class, one where I'd stood in the background adjusting my mat while she and Sophia posed in the foreground. The caption read, "The Queen remains oblivious to her subjects' real activities." There's more. Benjamin scrolled through weeks of messages, each swipe revealing another layer of deception. Isabella had screenshotted our lunch conversations where I'd offered advice about rebuilding after divorce, adding laughing emojis and comments about my complete cluelessness. Sophia shared meditation quotes she'd sent me about trust and friendship, followed by explicit details about her Tuesday afternoon sessions with Benjamin. Mia had forwarded my mentoring emails with annotations mocking my earnest career guidance. I walked to my home office without a word, leaving Benjamin holding his phone in the air like evidence in a trial where he was somehow both prosecutor and defendant. My hands remained steady as I powered on my computer, though something deep in my chest felt like it was fracturing along predetermined fault lines. The digital breadcrumbs were everywhere once I knew where to look. Isabella's Instagram, which she'd given me access to during her divorce proceedings when she needed someone to help document her ex-husband's spending, told a different story than her tears on my shoulder. Photos tagged at restaurants during our supposed girls' nights showed timestamps that matched Benjamin's client dinners. Her stories, which she thought disappeared after 24 hours, had been archived in my systematic way of preserving data. 3 months of deception cataloged in metadata. Sophia's meditation app, which we'd connected for accountability partners, revealed location data that contradicted every wellness retreat and spiritual workshop she'd claimed to attend. The app showed her at the Marriott downtown during her Tuesday energy healing certification classes. The same Marriott where Benjamin's expense reports showed regular pharmaceutical client meetings. The precision of their lies would have been admirable if it weren't so pathetic. Mia's professional calendar remained synced to my phone from when I'd helped her organize her CPA study schedule. The gaps in her timeline aligned perfectly with Benjamin's travel schedule. Every urgent client deadline that prevented our coffee meetings corresponded with his early returns from business trips. The woman I'd spent 60 hours tutoring had been using my own organizational systems to coordinate affairs with my husband. My fingers flew across the keyboard, creating spreadsheets that mapped their deception with temporal precision. Not because I needed the visual proof, the pattern was clear, but because treating betrayal as data points somehow made it manageable. Each timestamp became a coordinate. Each lie plotted on a graph that showed the systematic infiltration of my life. The WhatsApp messages were the most revealing. Benjamin had given me his phone to hold during last month's company dinner while he gave a presentation. I'd noticed the notifications but hadn't investigated. Now, with his messages synced to his tablet that we shared for household management, I could see everything. Harper discussing me with corporate efficiency, the perfect corporate wife. Supports her husband, never questions the late meetings, too blind to see what's right in front of her. It's almost too easy. Isabella's faux concern. I feel bad sometimes. She was so supportive during my divorce. But then I remember how cold she is, how she turned my emotional crisis into a project to be managed. She deserves this. Sophia's spiritual justification. The universe brought us together for a reason. Juliet's blocked chakras prevent her from experiencing true intimacy. We're actually helping Benjamin find his authentic self. Mia's gratitude with a twist. She taught me everything about professional development. Now Benjamin's teaching me about personal development. It's poetic, really. The cruelty wasn't just in the betrayal. It was in the mockery. They'd taken my strengths and reframed them as weaknesses. My analytical nature became emotional frigidity. My loyalty became blindness. My support became enabling. They'd constructed an entire narrative where I was the villain in my own life story. I found a video Sophia had sent last Tuesday. She was in my yoga spot at the studio wearing the leggings I'd recommended, demonstrating poses while saying, "This one's called Deceiving Dog. Perfect for our situation, right?" The group's response was a cascade of laughing emojis and comments about my flexibility being limited to Excel formulas. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. "Coffee tomorrow after the wellness event? I need to talk about something personal." The normalcy of it, the casual maintenance of our fake friendship, made my jaw clench. She was scheduling our regular coffee date for after she planned to sneak away with my husband during health screenings. Another message from Sarah Winters appeared. Reviewed the wellness event protocols. Interesting screening parameters. The stress test results should be particularly revealing. Want to discuss pattern recognition strategies. I closed the laptop and returned to the living room where Benjamin waited with the satisfaction of someone who'd just delivered a devastating presentation. He'd moved to the couch, legs spread wide, owning the space like he owned the narrative of our dissolution. "So now you know," he said. "The question is, what are you going to do about it? Cry? Scream? Beg me to choose you?" He leaned forward with manufactured concern. I know this is hard for someone like you to process. You're not equipped for emotional complexity. I sat in the chair across from him, my posture straight, hands folded. The migraine from earlier had transformed into something else. A crystalline clarity that made everything sharp and precise. I'm going to the wellness event tomorrow. He blinked, clearly not expecting such a mundane response. That's it? That's all you have to say? What would you prefer, Benjamin? Should I perform devastation for you? Give you and your court something else to laugh about in your group chat? I pulled out my phone, checking my trading algorithms with the same attention I'd give any Thursday evening. Another position had closed successfully, $4,700 gained. I'll attend the event. I'll get my screening. I'll support Harper's initiative like a good corporate wife. His confusion was almost comical. This wasn't the script he'd prepared for. You're not going to fight for our marriage? With what weapons? Emotion, passion, all those things you've determined I lack. I stood, smoothing my sensible skirt. You've made your position clear. You have a CEO who makes you feel powerful and 3 women who fulfill needs I apparently can't. The data doesn't support further investment in this particular venture. The next morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Benjamin left for work early, kissing my cheek with the same mechanical precision he'd used for years, unaware that everything had shifted in the space between yesterday and today. I waited until his car disappeared around the corner before pulling out the business card I'd kept hidden in my desk drawer for 3 years. Dr. Sarah Winters, biomedical analytics consultant. The woman who'd lost everything for telling the truth about Benjamin's industry. Sarah suggested meeting at a small cafe downtown, one of those places that served fair trade coffee and attracted freelancers with laptops rather than pharmaceutical executives with expense accounts. When I arrived, she was already there, hunched over a stack of papers, her auburn hair pulled back in the same practical ponytail she'd worn during our brief overlap at MedData Solutions. She looked up as I approached, and I saw recognition flicker across her face, followed by something else. Understanding. The exhaustion around her eyes spoke of battles fought against systems designed to protect people like Benjamin and Harper. Systems that crushed whistleblowers while rewarding those who played by corrupt rules. Juliet Thornton, she said, not as a question but as confirmation. I wondered when someone from that world would reach out. I sat down, ordering a simple black coffee while she studied me with the intensity of someone who'd learned to read people as carefully as datasets. You exposed the Meridian trial manipulation 3 years ago. Benjamin's company was involved in the cover-up. And now you're married to one of their star salespeople. She leaned back, fingers wrapped around her mug. That must be complicated. It's about to become significantly less complicated. I pulled out my phone, showing her the wellness event invitation. Harper Blackwood is launching this initiative tomorrow. Benjamin's been instrumental in organizing it. Sarah's expression shifted as she read through the details. Comprehensive health screenings, stress assessments, biometric data collection. That's ambitious for a corporate wellness program. It's meant to be their cover, I explained, keeping my voice level despite the acid churning in my stomach. Benjamin, Harper, and 3 other women are using it as an opportunity to continue their affairs while appearing to promote employee health. She set down her coffee slowly, processing this information with the same methodical approach she'd once applied to clinical trials. And you want to do what exactly? I want the truth to matter for once. These screenings, the medical data they're collecting, in the right hands with proper context, they could reveal more than anyone expects. Sarah's eyes lit up with something that wasn't quite hope but perhaps its cousin, possibility. Stress hormones don't lie. Neither do anxiety markers. When people think their secrets might be exposed, their bodies betray them in measurable ways. Over the next hour, she outlined her network of medical professionals who'd been pushed to the margins for refusing to compromise their ethics. Nurses who'd reported falsified data and found themselves unemployable. Lab technicians who'd questioned contaminated samples and lost their certifications. Doctors who'd refused to prescribe unnecessary medications and watched their practices crumble. They'd be very interested in conducting legitimate health screenings, Sarah said, sliding a list of names across the table. Completely above board, following all protocols, just with particular attention to stress-related biomarkers. When I returned home that afternoon, Benjamin was in his study practicing his wellness presentation. His voice carried through the house with salesman enthusiasm as he rehearsed statistics about employee productivity and healthcare cost reduction. I stood in the hallway listening to him describe how Isabella would oversee mental health resources, how Sophia's mindfulness sessions would reduce workplace stress, how Mia's financial wellness workshops would help employees manage healthcare expenses. "This is about investing in our people," he practiced, his tone hitting that perfect note of corporate sincerity. "Because healthy employees are successful employees." The irony was suffocating. Here was my husband, building a platform for public health while privately destroying the health of our marriage. Each of his co-conspirators positioned as wellness experts while participating in the least healthy behavior imaginable. That evening I sent Harper an email from my professional account, the one linked to my data analyst position. "I'd love to contribute to the Wellness Initiative's data analysis. Pattern recognition and statistical modeling are my specialties, and I believe I could help demonstrate the program's effectiveness through quantitative metrics." Her response came within minutes, effusive with the kind of false warmth that made my skin crawl. "Juliet, what a wonderful offer. We'd be thrilled to have your expertise. Your analytical skills would be invaluable in showing ROI and employee engagement metrics." She attached participant lists, vendor contracts, facility layouts, and screening protocols. Everything I needed, handed over with the casual confidence of someone who saw me as background furniture in my own life. The supportive wife trying to contribute to her husband's success, nothing more. I established my base of operations in a small office downtown, leased 6 months ago under the LLC I'd created for my trading activities. Benjamin had no idea it existed, just as he had no idea about the magnitude of my investment portfolio or the algorithms generating wealth while he slept. The space was sparse but functional. Multiple monitors, encrypted drives, secure internet connection. Everything necessary for what Sarah called data archaeology. We met there weekly, reviewing medical protocols with the attention of generals planning a campaign. Sarah brought research on how deception manifested in biological markers. Elevated cortisol, irregular heart rate variability, specific patterns in blood pressure fluctuation. Her network of medical professionals contributed their expertise, each one eager to participate in something that felt like justice rather than compliance. "The beauty of legitimate testing," Sarah explained during our third meeting, "is that we're not fabricating anything. Every result will be accurate, properly documented, and medically sound. We're simply ensuring that the data tells its complete story." She introduced me to Dr. Patricia Chin, an emergency physician who'd been sidelined after reporting insurance fraud at her previous hospital. Dr. Chin understood the importance of presentation, how the same test results could be interpreted through different lenses depending on context and emphasis. "When people are hiding something significant," Dr. Chin explained, "their bodies keep score. The stress of maintaining deception creates measurable physiological responses. We'll simply be thorough in our documentation." There was also Marcus Rodriguez, a lab technician who'd lost his position after refusing to alter contamination reports. He would handle the blood work processing, ensuring every sample received meticulous attention. "Numbers don't lie," he said with quiet intensity. "People do, but numbers never do." The team Sarah assembled shared more than professional expertise. They carried the weight of being punished for honesty in systems that rewarded deception. Each had paid a price for refusing to compromise their integrity, and now they saw an opportunity to balance those scales. Meanwhile, I maintained my role perfectly. I attended planning meetings for the wellness event, took detailed notes on logistics, created spreadsheets tracking participant enrollment. Harper praised my thoroughness while Benjamin smirked at what he considered my predictable obsession with organization. The Ice Queen's in her element. I overheard him tell Isabella during a planning call I wasn't supposed to hear. "Give her data to analyze and she's happy. She has no idea what's really happening." Their confidence was remarkable, really. The way they moved through the following days as if I were sleepwalking through my own life, blind to everything happening around me. I kept my routine intact with mathematical precision. Every morning at 5:30, I prepared Benjamin's breakfast while checking my overnight trading gains on my phone. Scrambled eggs, whole wheat toast, fresh juice. Normal. Predictable. Exactly what they expected from the Ice Queen. At the company fundraiser that weekend, Harper draped herself across Benjamin like an expensive scarf, her fingers tracing patterns on his sleeve while making direct eye contact with me. He wanted me to see. They all did. The thrill for them wasn't just the affairs. It was performing them in front of the oblivious wife. "Julie, you must be so proud of Benjamin," Harper said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "He's been absolutely instrumental in making this wellness initiative happen." I smiled, the kind of expression I'd perfected over years of client meetings. Benjamin's always been dedicated to his work. Sometimes I barely see him with all his late meetings and weekend preparations. The slight pause before her response told me everything. She was wondering if I knew if that comment held hidden meaning. But then Benjamin laughed, too loud and too quick. "That's my Juliet. Always understanding about work demands." Isabella approached with 2 glasses of wine, handing me one while air kissing my cheek. The same cheek she'd cried against 6 months ago during her divorce. "We still on for yoga tomorrow morning? Sophia's teaching that new hot flow class." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, taking a sip of wine I didn't want. "Though I might need to leave early. I've been researching some interesting patterns in health insurance claims. A friend of mine discovered her husband's affair when she noticed unusual billing patterns. Apparently, certain medications can be quite revealing." Isabella's hand trembled slightly, wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim. That's terrible. For your friend, I mean." "Oh, she's grateful now. Says the data never lies even when people do." I watched Isabella exchange glances with Sophia across the room. But I'm sure that's not relevant to anyone we know. During Monday's yoga class, I positioned myself directly behind Sophia, matching her poses with precise mimicry while she led the session. Halfway through, during a particularly challenging balance pose, I mentioned casually, "I've been getting into cryptocurrency. The returns are fascinating if you understand the patterns." Sophia wobbled, catching herself against the wall. "Cryptocurrency? That seems so complex for someone who isn't technically minded." "You'd be surprised what people can learn when they pay attention," I said, holding my tree pose perfectly still. "Benjamin thinks I'm too focused on traditional investments, but I've been building quite a portfolio. Sometimes the smartest money moves are the ones nobody sees coming." The entire class could hear us, and I watched Sophia's face cycle through emotions as she tried to determine if I was threatening or oblivious. Benjamin must have mentioned something about my supposed ignorance regarding finances. The seed of doubt was planted. That evening, Mia called about tax preparation, her voice artificially bright. "Just wanted to make sure you have all your documents ready. You know, W-2s, investment statements, the usual." "Actually, I've been meaning to ask you about cryptocurrency taxation. My portfolio has grown substantially, and I want to ensure everything's properly reported." I paused, letting the words sink in. Benjamin doesn't know the full extent of it. I wanted it to be a surprise for our anniversary. The silence stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. Finally, "How substantially are we talking?" "Oh, enough that I've been considering setting up an LLC for asset protection. You know, the kind of structure that survives major life changes. Divorces, for instance." Tuesday morning, my mother called while I was reviewing Sarah's latest medical protocol documents. Her voice carried that particular tone that meant she'd been thinking about something for days before calling. "Juliet, honey, is everything all right? You sound different lately." "Just work stress, Mom. The quarter-end reports have been particularly complex." I minimized the spreadsheet showing Benjamin's travel patterns cross-referenced with the others' schedules. "Thornton women have a way of handling stress," she said, and I could picture her in her kitchen, phone pressed between shoulder and ear while cooking. "We don't break, sweetheart. We bend and we wait, and when the time is right we strike back twice as hard." She'd never met Benjamin's mother, but somehow she knew. Mothers always knew. "I remember when your father thought he could hide his gambling from me," she continued. "I let him think I was oblivious for 3 months while I documented everything. When I finally confronted him with evidence, he had no room to maneuver. Sometimes, honey, the best strategy is letting them think they're winning right until they realize they've already lost." My sister Claire visited Wednesday afternoon, arriving unannounced with coffee and what she called sister intuition. She found me in the home office, surrounded by monitors displaying various spreadsheets. "Benjamin seems distracted," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "And your friends are acting weird." Isabella practically ran away when she saw me at the grocery store. "Everyone's stressed about the wellness event. It's a big initiative for Harper's company. I continued typing, tracking the asset transfers I'd been executing all week. Moving cryptocurrency to hardware wallets, establishing trust structures, creating financial fortifications that would survive any legal assault. Claire studied me with eyes that matched our mother's. When David cheated on me, I knew for 3 months before I said anything. The waiting was the hardest part. But it was also when I felt most powerful, knowing something he didn't know I knew. David was an idiot, I said, finally looking up from my screens. So is Benjamin. She stood, kissing the top of my head. Whatever you're planning, just remember you have backup. Thornton women stick together. Thursday night, I met Sarah for our final coordination. The medical team was ready, the protocols were established, and the testing equipment had been delivered to the venue. Everything calibrated to detect exactly what we expected to find: elevated stress hormones, anxiety markers, the biological signatures of deception under pressure. The beautiful thing about legitimate medical testing, Sarah said, reviewing our checklist one last time, is that it's completely legal and ethically sound. We're following every protocol, every guideline. We're just being very thorough in our analysis. I nodded, closing my laptop after confirming the last of my cryptocurrency transfers. $3.8 million, now completely protected from any claim Benjamin or his lawyers might make. The algorithms would keep running, generating wealth he'd never touch, building a future he'd never be part of. Are you ready for tomorrow? Sarah asked, something like concern flickering across her face. I've been ready since the moment he showed me that WhatsApp group, I replied, standing to leave. They want to use health screenings as cover for their affairs. They're about to learn that some things can't be hidden, not even from the Ice Queen they think is too cold to notice her kingdom has been invaded. The morning of April 28th arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that felt like nature's cruel joke. Sunshine streamed through our bedroom windows as I stood behind Benjamin, adjusting his tie with the same careful precision I'd used for 7 years. My fingers worked the silk into a perfect Windsor knot while he studied himself in the mirror, completely unaware that this would be the last morning of his carefully constructed life. You're going to do great today, I told him, smoothing his collar. The words came out steady, almost warm. This wellness initiative will really set you apart in the company. He caught my hands, holding them against his chest in what probably looked like affection to anyone watching. Juliet, you've been different lately. Plumber. More accepting. Harper thinks you've finally found your place. My place. As if I were a piece of furniture that had finally been arranged correctly in their lives. I smiled, the kind of expression that could mean anything. I've been doing a lot of thinking about where I belong. The drive to Harper's corporate headquarters took 23 minutes. Benjamin spent them reviewing his notes, practicing key phrases under his breath about employee wellness and corporate responsibility. I spent them running through contingencies in my mind, each scenario calculated and prepared for. The morning traffic moved in predictable patterns, just like everything else I'd mapped out. You'll participate in the screenings, right? Benjamin asked as we pulled into the parking garage. Harper specifically mentioned wanting full spouse participation. Shows commitment to the program. I wouldn't miss it, I replied, gathering my purse with deliberate calm. I'm very interested in what today will reveal. The corporate building thrummed with orchestrated energy. Harper's team had transformed the main floor into a wellness showcase that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. Banner displays promoting your health, your future lined the corridors. Registration tables staffed with aggressively cheerful volunteers directed participants to various screening stations. Isabella arrived as we were checking in, dressed in athleisure that screamed expensive but trying not to. She grabbed my arm with practiced familiarity, the same way she had during her divorce when she needed an anchor. Juliet. Isn't this exciting? I've been working on the mental health component for weeks. We're really going to make a difference in people's lives. The irony of her statement might have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. She was about to make a difference, just not the kind she expected. Sophia floated past in flowing designer yoga wear, her wrists jangling with healing crystals that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She pressed her palms together in a namaste gesture when she saw me. The energy here is absolutely transformative. I can feel the positive vibrations already. Vibrations can be very revealing, I said, returning her gesture with perfect mimicry. Sometimes they show us things we didn't expect to see. Mia had set up a station near the entrance, distributing glossy pamphlets about financial wellness and healthcare savings strategies. She waved me over with enthusiasm that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Juliet, I have some materials here about maximizing your health-related tax deductions. You know, given your interest in financial planning lately." "How thoughtful," I said, accepting a pamphlet I'd never read. "Though I think after today, everyone might need to reconsider their financial planning." The screening area had been organized with military precision. Sarah's team moved through the space with quiet efficiency, their medical credentials prominently displayed, their equipment gleaming under the corporate lighting. Dr. Patricia Chin supervised the blood draw station, her expression professionally neutral as she directed participants through the process. Benjamin went first, of course. He had to lead by example, rolling up his sleeve with the confidence of someone who'd never had a secret worth hiding. "Annual physical was perfect," he told the technician loud enough for others to hear. "Blood pressure of an athlete, cholesterol levels my doctor called exemplary. Physical health is just one component," Dr. Chin said, applying the tourniquet with practiced ease. "Our comprehensive screening includes stress markers, hormone levels, and various other indicators. You'd be surprised what a complete blood panel can reveal." Harper commanded the space near the executive screening area, her power suit impeccable despite the casual wellness theme. She spoke with each participant like they were personally important to her, that CEO magic of making everyone feel seen while actually seeing no one. "Juliet," she called out when she spotted me. "I wanted to personally thank you for your data analysis support. Your spreadsheets have been invaluable in tracking participation metrics." "Numbers tell stories," I replied, watching as she was called for her blood draw. "Sometimes they reveal patterns we didn't even know we were creating." Isabella's screening happened near mine. She chatted nervously with the technician about her yoga practice and clean eating habits. "I haven't had a cigarette in 3 years, completely cut out processed foods, and my stress levels are the lowest they've been since," she caught herself glancing at me. "Since my divorce." "Stress is interesting," Dr. Chin commented, labeling Isabella's samples with meticulous care. "People often think they're managing it well, but biological markers can tell a different story. The body keeps score even when the mind thinks it's winning." Sophia approached her screening with theatrical calm, explaining to everyone within earshot how her meditation practice had eliminated anxiety from her life. "I'm basically stress-proof," she announced. "My last wellness coach said I had the biomarkers of someone 10 years younger." "Biomarkers can shift rapidly," the technician replied, drawing her blood with smooth precision. "Especially when life circumstances change unexpectedly." Mia calculated the tax implications of health screenings while waiting her turn, her fingers flying over her phone calculator. "If this is considered preventive care, it could significantly impact healthcare deductions," she explained to no one in particular. "Though I suppose that depends on what the screening reveals." The morning progressed with clockwork precision. Sarah's team processed each participant with professional detachment, carefully labeling samples, documenting vital signs, asking standard health questions that seemed routine but were designed to establish baselines for what would come later. As the initial screenings concluded, I found Benjamin near the refreshment table, accepting congratulations from colleagues about the event's success. Harper stood beside him, her hand resting on his arm with casual possession. "The testing seemed very thorough," I mentioned, selecting a bottle of water from the display. "More comprehensive than I expected." Benjamin's smile flickered slightly. "That's the point. Complete health assessment." "I just hope everyone's results come back okay," I continued, my tone conversational. "I read an article about workplace screenings revealing unexpected conditions. Things people didn't even know they had." Harper's hand tightened on Benjamin's arm. "What kind of conditions?" "Oh, various things. Stress-related disorders, hormone imbalances, markers for anxiety that people had been suppressing." I paused, taking a sip of water. The article said the most interesting part was how certain biological markers could indicate lifestyle factors. Affairs, for instance, create specific stress patterns. Apparently, maintaining deception triggers measurable physiological responses. The silence that followed was delicious. Benjamin's jaw tightened. Harper's professional smile became fixed. Across the room, Isabella dropped her phone, the crash drawing everyone's attention. But I'm sure that's not relevant here, I added, my voice light as spring sunshine. After all, this is about wellness, not secrets. The waiting began immediately after the wellness event. 3 days of manufactured normalcy while Sarah's team processed results with meticulous care. Benjamin went to work each morning, kissed my cheek with mechanical precision and pretended everything was fine. But I saw the way he checked his phone every few minutes, the slight tremor in his hands when he thought I wasn't looking. Monday morning, May 1st, started like any other day except for the underlying current of anxiety that Benjamin couldn't quite hide. He left for work early, mumbling something about preparation meetings. I made myself coffee and waited, knowing the carefully orchestrated sequence was about to begin. The first call came at 9:47 a.m. I knew because Isabella posted on Instagram at 9:45 about leading her morning therapy group, a photo of her serene face with a caption about holding space for healing. 2 minutes later, that serenity shattered. Sarah forwarded me the security footage from the therapy center's waiting room, something she'd arranged through her network of allies who understood the importance of documentation. Isabella stood frozen in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, her face draining of color like water from a broken dam. "This has to be wrong," she kept repeating, loud enough for her clients to hear through the supposedly soundproof door. I have to. She stumbled over her words, looking at her therapy group through the glass partition. Professional composure crumbling, she gestured frantically at her assistant. "Cancel everything. Family emergency. Medical situation." Her clients exchanged concerned glances as their therapist, the woman who was supposed to guide them through emotional crises, fell apart in front of them. One client, an older woman who'd been seeing Isabella for anxiety, actually stood up to offer support before Isabella fled the building. Within minutes, Isabella was calling Benjamin. I knew because he answered his phone in our home office where he'd been working from home, and I could hear his side of the conversation from the kitchen. "Slow down, what are you talking about? What results? That's impossible. We need to, no, don't call Harper yet. Let me think." Sophia's meditation livestream started at 10:30 a.m. as it did every Monday. She'd built her brand on consistency, inner peace and unshakable calm. Her followers, nearly 12,000 of them, tuned in expecting their usual dose of guided tranquility. Instead, they witnessed a spectacular unraveling. The call came 15 minutes into her session. She'd been leading a breathing exercise about releasing what no longer serves you when her phone rang. She'd forgotten to silence it, the first crack in her perfect facade. "I need to take this," she told her audience, clearly expecting quick resolution. Sometimes the universe sends us urgent messages. The universe certainly did send a message, just not the kind she expected. Her followers watched in real time as their guru's centered composure shattered like meditation bells thrown against concrete. "What do you mean serious concerns? I don't understand. This is about stress tests. But I don't have stress. I eliminate stress. I teach people to eliminate stress." She paced frantically around her studio, apparently forgetting she was still live streaming. The comment section exploded with confusion and concern. "Is everything okay? Should we call someone? This doesn't seem very zen." Someone screen recorded the meltdown. Within hours, clips would be circulating on social media with hashtags like #GuruGoneWrong and #NamasteNotToday. But in that moment, Sophia was too panicked to care about her digital footprint. Mia received her call at 11:15 a.m., in the middle of preparing a crucial tax filing for her most important client, a Fortune 500 company with a deadline that afternoon. Her assistant later told me, through the office gossip network that moves faster than fiber optic cables, that Mia simply stood up from her desk, said "medical emergency," and walked out. She left the client's confidential documents open on her screen, her computer unlocked, the filing incomplete. The kind of professional negligence that ends careers in the financial sector. Her company had to scramble to find another CPA to complete the filing, barely making the deadline. The client was furious. Mia's reputation, built over years of meticulous work, evaporated in minutes. Harper's board meeting was scheduled for noon. A quarterly review with investors, the kind of meeting CEOs prepare for weeks in advance. She'd been in the middle of presenting projected earnings when her assistant interrupted with an urgent medical call that couldn't wait. The board members watched their usually unflappable CEO excuse herself to take the call in her office. They could see her through the glass walls. One of those modern architectural choices meant to convey transparency. They watched her pace, her power stance crumbling, her hands shaking as she gripped her phone. When she returned to the boardroom 5 minutes later, she looked like a different person. The commanding presence replaced by barely controlled panic. "I apologize, but I need to handle a medical situation immediately," she announced, her voice cracking on the word medical. "We'll need to reschedule." The investors exchanged worried glances. In the corporate world, CEOs don't abandon board meetings unless something catastrophic has happened. Within an hour, speculation about Harper's medical emergency was affecting stock prices. The company's communications team went into crisis mode, trying to control a narrative they didn't understand. Benjamin's call to me came at 12:30 p.m. I was sitting at the kitchen table, calmly reviewing my investment portfolio on my laptop, when his name appeared on my phone screen. "Juliet, we need to go to the hospital. Now." His voice shook with barely controlled panic. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "It's the wellness screening. The results. Something's wrong." Isabella called and Sophia and they're all. "We need to go to Riverside Medical Center immediately." "All? Who's all?" He paused, caught in his own web. "Just some people from the event. Similar results. The doctors want to see everyone immediately." I closed my laptop slowly, letting him hear the deliberate click. "Of course. I'll meet you there." Riverside Medical Center's emergency room became the most awkward reunion in history. By 2 p.m. they'd all arrived, each trying to pretend they didn't know why the others were there. Isabella sat in a corner clutching meditation beads she'd apparently borrowed from Sophia's studio, running them through her fingers with the desperation of someone who'd just discovered religion. Her therapy training couldn't help her now. She was beyond self-soothing techniques. Sophia attempted breathing exercises, but they weren't working. Each inhale seemed to catch in her throat. Each exhale came out as a barely suppressed sob. The breathing coach who couldn't breathe properly. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Mia had her phone calculator out, obsessively computing potential medical costs, insurance deductibles, out-of-network possibilities. The financial expert trying to quantify a problem that couldn't be solved with mathematics. Harper paced near the reception desk, demanding to speak with whoever's in charge, insisting she needed executive-level medical attention immediately. Even in crisis, she couldn't abandon the CEO persona, though it was clearly failing her. Benjamin sat beside me, his leg bouncing with nervous energy, sweating despite the hospital's aggressive air conditioning. He kept glancing at the others, then at me, trying to gauge if I understood the connection. The careful choreography of their affairs had collapsed into this graceless scramble for medical attention. They all avoided eye contact with each other. The conspirators who'd laughed about the Ice Queen in their group chat now couldn't even look at their co-conspirators. The air was thick with unspoken terror and the smell of industrial disinfectant. At 3 p.m., Dr. Patricia Chin entered the waiting area. She carried a tablet and wore an expression of professional gravity that made everyone sit up straighter. She looked at each of them in turn, her gaze lingering just long enough to make them squirm. "I need to speak with all of you about your test results from the wellness screening," she announced, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made argument impossible. "In my 20 years of practicing medicine," Dr. Chin continued, her voice cutting through the emergency room's ambient noise, "I've never encountered results quite like these from a workplace screening. The patterns are unprecedented. We need to contact all of your intimate partners immediately for testing." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I watched as 5 faces simultaneously processed the implications, their carefully maintained secrets about to become catastrophically public. Harper's CEO composure cracked first, her hand flying to her throat. Isabella's borrowed meditation beads clattered to the floor. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent waiting room. Within hours, the first anonymous tip reached HealthWatch Daily, a wellness blog with surprising reach in corporate circles. The carefully worded article appeared by evening. Concerning patterns emerge from corporate wellness initiative. No names, no specific companies mentioned, but enough details that anyone familiar with Harper's widely publicized program could connect the dots. The digital wildfire spread faster than California brush fires in drought season. By Tuesday morning, Speculation dominated LinkedIn feeds and Twitter threads. Anyone know what happened at that big pharma wellness event? Heard something about medical emergencies involving executives. My friend works there, says the CEO hasn't been back since Friday. Isabella's therapy practice unraveled first. Her clients, already shaken by witnessing her Monday morning breakdown, began canceling en masse. The woman they'd trusted with their deepest anxieties had displayed more instability than any of them had ever shown in session. Her Psychology Today profile, which had boasted 5 stars and glowing reviews, accumulated concerned comments. Is Dr. Bennett okay? She abandoned our group session without explanation. Seeking a new therapist, this one seems to be having her own crisis. By Wednesday, her office landlord called about missed rent. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Professional liability insurance questions, state board inquiries about patient abandonment, former clients demanding refund for prepaid sessions. Within 10 days, Isabella Bennett, PhD, went from successful therapist to unemployed, her reputation shredded beyond repair. Sophia's digital empire crumbled even faster. The screen recording of her livestream meltdown went viral with cruel efficiency. Meme accounts turned her panic into content. When your chakras are misaligned, captioned over her frantic pacing. Meditation guru discovers meditation doesn't cure everything became a trending topic. Her brand partnerships evaporated overnight. The essential oil company, the yoga mat manufacturer, the organic tea subscription service all sent termination notices citing brand safety concerns and misalignment with company values. Her Instagram followers, once 12,000 strong, fled like rats from a sinking ship. The comments section became a graveyard of broken trust. Fraud. Can't even handle her own stress. Namaste? More like Nama go away. She tried damage control with a video about working through challenges, but it only made things worse. The internet never forgets and it rarely forgives. Mia's professional destruction happened with corporate efficiency. The Fortune 500 client she'd abandoned filed a formal complaint with the state accounting board. Word spread through the financial sector's whisper network faster than high-frequency trading algorithms. Unreliable. Abandoned crucial deadline. Mental health issues affecting work quality. Her firm conducted an internal review, discovered several other irregularities in her recent work, and terminated her employment with cause, eliminating any severance or unemployment benefits. Harper faced the most spectacular fall. The emergency board meeting convened within 48 hours of her hospital visit. Investors demanded explanations for the CEO's erratic behavior and questionable judgment. The wellness initiative, meant to showcase corporate leadership, became evidence of poor decision-making. Stock prices dropped 12% in 3 days. Financial news outlets picked up the story. Pharmaceutical giant CEO under fire for failed wellness program. The board's vote was unanimous. Immediate termination for cause, forfeiture of unvested stock options, and a carefully worded press release about pursuing new leadership directions. Harper Blackwood, who'd built her career on women's empowerment seminars and executive coaching, found herself unemployable. No company would touch a CEO whose last position ended in stock price collapse and scandal. Thursday morning, May 4th, a process server arrived at our door with divorce papers. Benjamin had apparently found enough clarity through his panic to contact Marcus Wellington, a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics and expensive suits. I accepted the thick envelope with steady hands while Benjamin watched from the staircase, probably expecting tears or shock. The petition was almost comedic in its accusations. According to Wellington's filing, I was an emotionally unavailable spouse who prioritized career over marriage, who had failed to provide adequate emotional support, and who had contributed to the dissolution through coldness and neglect. Benjamin sought alimony based on my steady employment and his current medical situation affecting his ability to work. I read through the document at the kitchen table, occasionally sipping coffee, while Benjamin hovered nearby like a nervous bird. He'd clearly expected a different reaction: rage, bargaining, perhaps begging. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made a single call. "Patricia Morrison, please. Tell her Juliet Thornton is ready to proceed." Patricia Morrison didn't just handle divorces, she orchestrated them like surgical strikes. She'd represented 3 Fortune 500 executives' wives and had never lost a case. When we met the following Monday for the initial hearing, she arrived with 3 assistants wheeling boxes of documentation. Wellington, sitting beside Benjamin, visibly paled at the display. "Your Honor," Patricia began, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made judges lean forward, "we'd like to submit evidence of Mr. Thornton's hidden assets and undisclosed liabilities." The first box contained 7 years of cryptocurrency trading records, meticulously documented, every transaction time-stamped and verified. The $3.8 million portfolio appeared on the courtroom projection screen like a mathematical symphony. All acquired before marriage or classified as intellectual property from proprietary algorithms, completely separate assets under state law. Wellington's coffee cup trembled. Brown liquid splashed across his expensive legal pad. Benjamin's mouth opened and closed like a fish discovering it couldn't breathe air. The man who'd called me frigid was learning that ice could be worth more than fire. Patricia continued with surgical precision, revealing Benjamin's hidden gambling debts from online poker sites, undeclared income from pharmaceutical kickbacks disguised as consulting fees, and tax liabilities that would make an IRS agent salivate. His financial house of cards collapsed in real time, each document another gust of wind. Furthermore, Patricia announced, producing a final folder. Given Mr. Thornton's recently terminated employment and his documented financial obligations, we believe he may actually owe spousal support to my client, not the reverse. The judge's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. Wellington stammered objections that sounded more like questions. Benjamin sat frozen, perhaps finally understanding that the Ice Queen hadn't been oblivious. She'd been calculating compound interest. Within 6 weeks, the full scope of destruction became clear. Isabella taught beginners yoga at the community center for $15 an hour, a far cry from her $150 therapy sessions. Sophia joined a multi-level marketing scheme selling essential oils, posting desperately cheerful videos about new opportunities to an audience that no longer existed. Mia prepared tax returns at a strip mall franchise, her CPA credentials technically intact but practically worthless. Harper disappeared entirely from public view, her LinkedIn profile abandoned, her woman empowerment brand extinct. Benjamin moved back to his parents' house in Ohio, his pharmaceutical career over, his reputation destroyed, his friends with benefits network collapsed. The last I heard, he was working at his father's hardware store, the golden boy reduced to mixing paint and cutting keys. 8 weeks after that courtroom revelation, I sat in Patricia Morrison's office for the final time. The divorce decree lay on the mahogany desk between us, requiring only my signature to end 7 years of marriage. Benjamin had already signed, his handwriting shakier than I'd ever seen it, probably executed from his childhood bedroom in Ohio where he now resided with his parents. "He gets exactly what he brought into the marriage," Patricia said, sliding the papers toward me, "which amounts to approximately negative $43,000 in debt and a reputation that won't recover in this lifetime." I picked up the pen, a simple ballpoint, nothing fancy. My hand remained perfectly steady as I signed my name, each letter formed with the same precision I applied to algorithms. No trembling, no hesitation, no dramatic pause for reflection. Just the clean execution of a necessary transaction, like closing out a position that had turned toxic. "Any regrets?" Patricia asked, genuinely curious rather than professionally concerned. "You don't regret cutting away gangrene," I replied, setting down the pen. "You regret not recognizing the infection sooner." Benjamin's messages had started arriving within days of the court hearing. First angry, then bargaining, then desperate. My email filter automatically redirected them to a folder I never opened, digital ghosts haunting an inbox I no longer visited. The man who'd called me frigid and weak was learning that ice doesn't melt from desperate pleas. The downtown apartment I moved into cost more per month than Benjamin's annual salary at his father's hardware store. 23rd floor, corner unit, floor-to-ceiling windows that transformed the city into a living canvas of lights and movement. I'd paid cash, a detail that made the real estate agent's eyes widen with the kind of respect money commands. Standing at those windows my first night there, I watched the city pulse below. For 7 years I'd hidden in suburban shadows, pretending to be less than I was. Now, elevated above the streets where I'd been invisible, I finally occupied the space I'd earned. The view wasn't about status. It was about perspective, seeing clearly what had been obscured at ground level. My wardrobe transformation happened gradually but deliberately. Gone were the sensible flats and neutral blouses, replaced with tailored pieces that fit my body and my success. Not flashy or desperate for attention, but quality that spoke without shouting. The saleswoman at Nordstrom recognized the shift immediately, moving from showing me mid-range options to bringing out pieces from the private shopping suite. "You've changed," she said during my third visit, studying me with professional interest. "Not just the clothes. Something fundamental." "I stopped pretending to be furniture," I replied, trying on a coat that cost more than my old monthly salary. The car came next, a Tesla Model S in deep metallic gray. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I'd always wanted one and there was no longer any reason to deny myself. The salesman started his usual financing pitch until I mentioned I'd be paying in full. The shift in his demeanor was almost comical, suddenly eager to show me every feature, every upgrade, every possibility. My trading algorithms continued their work with mechanical precision, generating returns while I slept, while I ate, while I learned to exist as myself rather than someone's diminished version of me. The portfolio crossed 4 million, then 4.5, each milestone just another data point in an upward trend that showed no signs of reversing. Sarah Winters became an unexpected constant in this new life. We met for coffee every Thursday morning at the same cafe where we'd first plotted the wellness screening. Our conversations evolved from strategic planning to something deeper. Two women who'd seen systems from the inside and chosen accuracy over acceptance. "You know what I've realized?" Sarah said one morning, stirring her coffee with unusual contemplation. "We're taught that revenge is ugly, that we should forgive and move forward. But sometimes the kindest thing you can do is hold people accountable. Otherwise, they just keep destroying others." She was processing her own grief, not for the career she'd lost whistleblowing, but for the colleagues who'd known the truth and chosen silence. We understood each other in ways that didn't require explanation. Intelligence wasn't coldness. It was the ability to see patterns others missed or ignored. Precision wasn't cruelty. It was the refusal to accept comfortable lies. "I ran into Isabella last week," Sarah mentioned during another coffee. "She's teaching chair yoga at the senior center now. She tried to apologize, said she'd been going through something, that she wasn't herself." "She was exactly herself," I replied, watching steam rise from my cup. "That's the problem with mirrors. They show what's actually there, not what people pretend to be." The grief came in unexpected waves. Not for Benjamin or the marriage, that had been dead long before the reveal, but for the friendships I'd thought were real. Isabella's late-night talks about rebuilding after divorce. Sophia's shared journey toward mindfulness. Mia's gratitude for mentorship. All of it performative, transactional, false. "You're mourning relationships that never existed," Sarah said during one particularly difficult morning. "They were using you as an alibi for their affairs. That's not friendship, that's accessories to deception." 6 months after the divorce finalized, Sarah and I walked to dinner at a new restaurant downtown. October had turned the air crisp, requiring light jackets but nothing heavy. We were discussing her potential consulting firm, how she might help other whistleblowers navigate corporate retaliation when I saw him. Benjamin sat against a building near the restaurant district, a cardboard sign propped beside him, wearing clothes I recognized from our marriage but now worn and dirty. He'd grown a beard, probably thinking it would disguise him, but I knew that posture, that way of hunching his shoulders when defeated. I stopped walking, studying him with the same detachment I'd apply to analyzing market data. No surge of satisfaction at his fall. No pity for his circumstances. No anger at what he'd done. Just the neutral observation of a data point that had moved from one position to another, following predictable patterns of cause and effect. "Is that?" Sarah started to ask, following my gaze. "Statistical probability playing out," I replied, resuming our walk. "When you build your life on lies, the foundation eventually collapses. Mathematical certainty." As we entered the restaurant, warm light and conversation enveloping us, I realized the truth about everything that had happened. The revenge hadn't been about anger or destroying them. It had been about accuracy, forcing reality to match reality, making the external align with the internal. They'd destroyed themselves the moment they mistook quietness for weakness, precision for coldness, patience for stupidity. I hadn't orchestrated their downfall. I'd simply provided the mirror and let them see what they'd already become. The rest was just mathematics, as predictable and neutral as any algorithm I'd ever written. If this story of calculated revenge had you holding your breath, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Juliet sat calmly at the wellness event, knowing exactly what was about to unfold for everyone who'd underestimated her. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more gripping stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.